A bombshell new lawsuit that involves Sean Diddy Combs, but isn't against the disgraced music mogul. As Diddy is listening to closing arguments in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial in federal court in New York, his son, Justin, has been hit with a lawsuit by a woman who claims that he lured her to Los Angeles to be raped by multiple men, including his dad, Sean Diddy Combs.
Another massive wave of controversy is building right now, and it's growing by the minute. Once again, everything seems to be revolving around a courtroom, a powerful figure from the entertainment world, and a storm of rumors spreading across the internet faster than anyone can contain. But what makes this situation even more explosive is how it all started. There was no dramatic press conference, no official announcement, no warning that something big was about to unfold. Instead, the story began quietly, with small details emerging behind the scenes, the kind of details that most people would normally overlook. But this time, those details started connecting. And as they did, a much bigger picture began to take shape, one that is now raising serious questions about what might really be happening behind closed doors. Because if even part of these claims turn out to be true, this could become one of the most shocking developments the entertainment industry has seen in a long time.
It was just in the hours after the government on Thursday finished their closing arguments in the case against the disgraced music mogul that we learned about this new lawsuit against Sean Combs' son, Justin. Justin is one of Diddy's 7 kids. Here he is with his dad's arm around his shoulder. Justin has been in court supporting his dad, just as his siblings have been over the past 7 weeks of testimony. Now, listen, whatever your feelings are on Sean Combs and whether you think he's guilty of the charges that could put him in federal prison for the rest of his life, you just have to think how difficult it must be to hear about all the sexual exploits of their father. But if you believe the allegations I'm about to tell you in this new lawsuit brought against Justin Combs, Justin apparently was very aware of his dad's lifestyle. The new lawsuit that just dropped was filed by a woman from Louisiana who says in 2017, Justin Combs coaxed her to come to LA because she says that Diddy's son promised her a job in the entertainment industry. She claims the two had met on Snapchat, and Justin allegedly asked for explicit pictures, and she sent them. The woman, who's not named in this suit, says when she got to LA, she was raped by several men, including a certain music mogul now at the center of this high-profile, historic trial in federal court in Lower Manhattan. Yes, Sean Diddy Combs. The alleged victim claims that Justin invited her out west for a weekend to talk about her career. But when she got there, she says she was kept in a house in Beverly Hills. And according to the lawsuit, things seemed fine at first, but when she allegedly asked Justin Combs if they were going to leave the house, he said no. She claims that Justin Combs offered her alcohol, pills, and weed, and she thinks that the weed was laced. Now, you can see in those allegations some of the comparisons in this lawsuit to the so-called freak-offs that we have been hearing about for weeks at the center of the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial. The woman says after she took the drugs, 3 men entered the house and all of them were wearing masks. Now, it's unclear what kind of masks the men were wearing, but when I read that part, I thought about the testimony of Sheree Hayes in the Sean Diddy Combs trial, the escort known as the Punisher. He testified that during a freak-off, Sean Combs allegedly wore a face covering that he likened to a Muslim hijab. In the lawsuit against Justin Combs, the alleged victim says that she knew that one of the men was Diddy just because of his mannerisms, but how about this? She also knew it was Diddy because she says that Justin, as his dad, entered the home to allegedly rape a woman that he brought to LA, called Diddy, quote, Pops. Now, we see on Justin's social media that Pops is the phrase that he often uses for his dad. In this lawsuit, the alleged victim claims that she was led to a bedroom where she was allegedly told, quote, you better let this happen or else. Then she says that each man took a turn raping her, calling it a, quote, brutal gang rape. After that, she was taken to an airport on Monday and flown home. Not only is Diddy facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison if convicted of all the charges in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial, there have been nearly 80 lawsuits filed against him in civil court. Many are still active. Several of the lawsuits accuse Diddy of sexual abuse and are filed by people who are not giving their names, just like in this lawsuit that we're talking about. This also isn't the first lawsuit that Justin Combs has recently faced. Justin was named in a suit brought by music producer Rodney Jones, who goes by Little Rod. Rod claims that Diddy coerced him into...
Instead, the story began the way many modern scandals often do, quietly. Not with an official statement or a press conference, but with whispers, fragments of information, and sudden claims that something dramatic had happened behind closed doors. At first, it seemed like just another rumor circulating online. But within hours, those whispers started turning into headlines. Online forums exploded with speculation. Video creators rushed to upload breakdowns and theories. And across social media, comment sections quickly filled with heated arguments as people tried to piece together what might actually be unfolding inside a legal battle that has already captured massive public attention. Then came the newest twist in the story. According to rumors spreading across multiple platforms, individuals connected to the central figure, possibly even family members, may have revealed deeply personal details that no one expected to hear. And that's where the situation suddenly became far more complicated. Because if the circulating claims are even partially accurate, statements linked to the courtroom proceedings may have exposed private family tensions that had never been discussed publicly before. But the moment those rumors began appearing online, the entire narrative started to shift. Because once family dynamics become part of a high-profile legal battle, the situation stops being just about the courtroom. It becomes something much bigger, a public spectacle where every statement, every rumor, and every reaction is examined under a microscope. And now, people everywhere are asking the same question. What is really happening behind closed doors?
Sexual acts. And you can see the suit also names Justin Combs and accused Justin of covering up a shooting in 2022 at Little Rod's studio in LA with his dad. In May, a judge did dismiss Justin from Little Rod's lawsuit, so he is no longer facing those allegations. As for the lawsuit filed in the hours before his dad's attorneys were to make closing arguments, E! News reports that Diddy's attorneys have denied the allegations, but it's unclear what Justin's response is at the time of this recording. Joining us now is criminal defense attorney Will Corman. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us. What stands out to you in this lawsuit that Sean Combs is named, but also his son Justin?
Well, it's interesting. I think that the connection to Sean Combs is pretty tenuous. You know, we've gone through this all. It almost seems the one connection to Sean Combs that they actually put on him is the allegation that Justin called one of the masked men Pops during the course of the assault or just before the assault. That's it. The other connection, obviously, is that Sean Combs is Justin Combs' dad. So I think it's a bit of a stretch. Again, we're just receiving these documents now. We're just going through this lawsuit now. Perhaps there's more out there, but it really doesn't seem that way.
And of course, people who are victims of sexual violence, you want them to get their justice. We have seen dozens of lawsuits filed against Justin's dad in the wake of when he was indicted for the trial that he's on right now. How do you go through these lawsuits and understand who's telling the truth and who actually has a case that could be heard in court? Someone like Cassie Ventura, when you see that video from 2016, or you do look at some of these Jane Doe lawsuits and you wonder how many of them are true.
Look, as a criminal defense attorney, it's my job to be cynical, and it's my job to, review everything with a pretty jaundiced eye. So the question really becomes are there corroborating facts and circumstances from Jump Street that make sense? So for example, if this lawsuit is alleging that something happened in LA during a specific period of time, do we know that Sean Combs was there? Do we actually know that he was present in LA? These things aren't difficult to find out, but it's those baby steps to trying to build the foundation of a lawsuit to see what's realistic that really matter in a case like this. And as you so correctly said, we want victims of domestic violence, of sexual violence, and so on and so forth to actually be compensated accordingly. Unfortunately, when we have circumstances where we have somebody famous who's been charged with crimes, we have somebody famous who's been sued, there can be instances where other folks jump on the bandwagon. And I'm not suggesting that's what's happening here, but it is something that everyone needs to look at skeptically.
Right, absolutely. If you were to bring a lawsuit against someone like Justin Combs, are any of these, and even the cases involving his dad, and you're bringing a civil suit, what facts do you need to have? I mean, certainly if you have a victim who says that this happened and they're ready to, they're able to provide some corroborating evidence that something happened, what do you actually need to be able to go to the courthouse and say, I'm filing a lawsuit against this person?
I think that you need to have somebody who's willing to state under oath that this is what happened to me, that this is what I'm alleging, these are my damages, this is how it's impacted me. And as an attorney, again, I would want to make sure, especially in a lawsuit like this, where it involves a high profile person, but quite frankly, in any lawsuit.
Once a courtroom battle begins pulling family dynamics into the spotlight, the situation stops being just a legal case. It becomes something far more emotional, far more unpredictable, and in the eyes of the public, far more explosive. And that shift happened almost instantly. People who had only been casually following the case suddenly started paying much closer attention. Social media feeds quickly filled with posts asking the same question: what exactly was revealed? But like many stories that spread rapidly online, the details remain frustratingly unclear. There are claims that personal conversations were referenced during discussions surrounding the case. Claims that private moments inside the household may have been brought up. And perhaps most striking of all, claims suggesting that individuals close to the central figure may have shared experiences that paint a very different picture of the man now standing at the center of this legal storm. Yet at the same time, none of these claims have been fully confirmed within a clear and complete context. And that uncertainty is exactly what has turned the situation into a wildfire of speculation. Because when information is incomplete, the internet fills the gaps on its own, and those interpretations can spread faster than the facts themselves. Some commentators now believe these rumors could signal a major turning point in the legal battle. Their reasoning is simple. When the people closest to a public figure suddenly become part of the narrative, the entire dynamic of the story can change. Because it stops being just about legal arguments or courtroom strategy. It becomes about trust, relationships, and the personal realities that may exist behind the carefully managed public image. And in cases like this, those revelations, real or rumored, can reshape how the entire situation is perceived by the world.
That there is some corroborating information out there so that my lawsuit isn't tossed out of court pretty quickly.
And reading through this complaint, it mentions several other lawsuits. You have the lawsuit from Rodney Jones, who's known as Little Rod, and Sean Combs is facing that lawsuit, and his son was named in it, but has since been dropped. What do you make about it having all these other different cases and elements brought in? What is the attorney here trying to prove?
Well, it almost appears as if the attorney is saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So here are all these other lawsuits, and I've reviewed the complaint, and they talk about them in some detail. They don't just list them. They say, this happened on this date, and this person sued Sean Combs here, and this person sued Sean Combs here for this set of facts and circumstances. And they're essentially trying to say, because there's all these other lawsuits, you should give this one a stamp of approval, because again, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Tony Buzbee, his law firm is bringing this. He has been in the civil world a very, very prominent name. For those who don't know him, and you work in criminal defense, what do you know about Tony Buzbee? Knowing that it's his law firm bringing this, what does that tell you?
I don't think that the Buzbee law firm is taking these allegations lightly. I believe they have the resources to do their own investigations prior to actually filing these suits. So this isn't some, sole practitioner who's trying to jump on the cottage industry that's been created around suing Sean Combs. I think that they have the ability to investigate this. They have the ability to decide whether or not they want to take on these cases. And I think that does lend some credibility, albeit, not a ton, but I think it does lend some credibility to the facts and circumstances surrounding it. In other words, this alleged victim didn't just walk in off the street to some random law firm who then is saying, oh, we now have the ability to sue Sean Combs. This is someone who's been down this well-trod path before and probably knows exactly what the pitfalls are in suing somebody as prominent as Sean Combs.
This lawsuit came down at the time we're recording this, came down last night. So that was a couple hours after the government finished their closing arguments against Sean Combs. And as we're recording this right now, Sean Combs, his defense team is giving his closing argument. What do you make about the timing of this? It's against Justin Combs and Sean Combs' name, but it's happening right in the middle of maybe the most pivotal part of this entire trial.
I don't exactly know what to make of the timing of it. I think it's interesting. I think that I'm a little surprised that it's come out so late, but sometimes, we don't know what led the alleged victim in this lawsuit to break their silence and to file this lawsuit. Perhaps they were watching the testimony or reviewing the testimony in the criminal case and said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me. Perhaps they said, they listened to the testimony and they said, there are so many victims here. I believe that I am one too. We don't know what prompted it. I think the timing is interesting, but I don't know that I can make anything of it as we sit here right now.
I think of recently you had Tyler Perry, prominent name in Hollywood, very different case, but accused of sexual violence and sexual harassment, workplace harassment with an actor who had worked on one of his shows, and the actor provided text messages in the complaint. This doesn't have that. Very different case. But the fact that there's not that visual evidence that we can look at,
and that shift can dramatically influence how the public interprets everything else connected to the case. But not everyone is rushing to conclusions. Some voices are urging caution. They remind people that family relationships are complicated, emotional, and often deeply misunderstood, especially when fragments of those relationships are discussed outside the privacy of a home. Because when a single comment is taken out of context, it can easily transform into a sensational headline that doesn't reflect the full reality of what was actually said. And in the age of viral media, nuance rarely survives the journey across the internet. Instead, the conversation quickly splits into two powerful camps. On one side are those who believe the alleged revelations point to something far more serious than anyone previously realized. From their perspective, if people close to the central figure are beginning to speak out, even indirectly, it could suggest that deeper issues have been hidden from the public eye for years. But the other side sees the situation very differently. They believe these rumors are simply the latest example of how every new detail connected to the legal battle becomes exaggerated the moment it reaches social media. From their point of view, the internet has turned the entire case into a massive spectacle, one where speculation spreads rapidly and often replaces carefully verified facts. And in that environment, the line between truth, rumor, and interpretation can become incredibly difficult to see, which leaves the public facing a complicated question. Are these rumors revealing something important, or are they simply another example of how quickly online narratives can spiral out of control?
According to his publicist, a former commissioner told CBS News that it's one of the most wanted jobs in the institution. He gets to apparently work in a private office. There's air conditioning. He can eat food that's brought in for religious services. A corrections officer told the outlet that the chapel is one of the only places that inmates can congregate freely, that assistants are allowed to prepare a call-out list, which tells corrections officers who's allowed to leave their cells. Assistants could potentially add their friends to that list. But Combs is also apparently taking care of outside business from behind bars too. Yeah, just before Thanksgiving, his legal team alerted the court that Combs had paid the fines that he owed as part of his conviction and sentence. Quote, on October 16, 2025, this court entered an amended judgment imposing a $200 special assessment and a $500,000 fine to be paid in full not later than 60 days after the date of sentencing. We respectfully submit this letter to inform the court that Mr. Combs paid the fine and special assessment to the Southern District of New York cashier on November 24, 2025. As we talk about Combs behind bars, we also have to talk about an appeal, because as Combs works to shave off as much of his sentence as he can with good behavior and completion of the intensive drug program, his attorneys are working to not only get him out of prison, but also get his conviction thrown out. October 22nd, Combs' legal team filed a criminal appeal on his behalf with the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. They requested an expedited appeal, hoping to get Combs out of prison as soon as possible. They provided the court with a proposed schedule and said the government had no objection. And I'll tell you what, on November 3rd, Circuit Judge Beth Robinson filed this order, quote, appellant moves to expedite the appeal on the following schedule. Appellant's opening brief and appendix due by December 23rd, 2025. The government's brief due by February 20th, 2026. Appellant's reply brief due by March 13th, 2026. And oral argument in April of 2026. It is hereby ordered that the motion is granted. Yeah, so we'll be on the lookout for that one as well. Okay, in the meantime, what do Combs' holidays look like now that he's in federal prison? Well, the multimillionaire won't be able to spend it like he used to, but there are special meals and activities that inmates can participate in. In fact, Combs apparently teamed up with an internal group called Bankroll Bosses to help organize and fund a special meal for his fellow inmates. According to a report from Us Weekly, the group volunteered to buy food from the prison's commissary, but they didn't just buy it. No, they reportedly spent 2 days preparing all of this food for these inmates. In all, the outlet reports that 1,000 inmates were served. Now, Combs gave this quote to Us Weekly through his spokesperson, quote, Thanksgiving to me is about making sure other people eat. Everybody misses their family. People get depressed during the holidays. We just wanted to come together as a family and do our own thing. Now, there's no word on what exactly Combs and other inmates purchased from the commissary to make this meal, but it is apparently a very nice gesture regardless. According to TMZ, the Christmas menu at Fort Dix includes a whole Cornish hen, mashed potatoes, cornbread dressing, mixed vegetables. But now I want to bring on a very special guest. Okay, so now I want to welcome back on prison consultant Justin Perperni. And I want to welcome back on not just because I love having Justin on, but Justin, you are now working with Sean Combs and his team while he's in prison. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Well, I've had a connection through a mutual friend with Sean for many years. And when you're in custody, when you're sitting in segregation, it can change you and you want to learn. So our mutual friend a while back sent him a book called Earning Freedom that was written by my friend, Michael Santos, who I met in.
And this clash of interpretations is exactly what's fueling the latest explosion of attention surrounding the case. Because the truth is, high-profile courtroom battles have always fascinated the public. Whenever wealth, fame, and power collide with the reality of legal accountability, the entire world starts watching more closely. Every hearing turns into a headline. Every rumor sparks a debate. And every new claim quickly becomes a viral moment. But when family members suddenly become part of the conversation, the emotional stakes rise dramatically. For many people, family represents the most private and most sacred part of someone's life. So when rumors begin circulating that deeply personal details may have surfaced in a courtroom, the level of curiosity goes far beyond ordinary legal drama. It becomes something far more personal. And that curiosity is exactly what has driven millions of people to search for more information about these alleged revelations. Some observers believe that if the rumored statements are accurate, they could fundamentally reshape the entire narrative surrounding the case. But others remain far more skeptical. They argue that the story may simply be another example of internet culture doing what it often does best, taking fragments of information and transforming them into dramatic, shocking headlines
and
long
Michael spent
before
a year
the
in
full
segregation
truth is
before he was
known. And in a
convicted
case
and served a
already
long time in
surrounded
prison.
by
So our
intense
friend
public
thought that book
scrutiny,
could help
that
him
process
get
can
through his own
turn even the
crisis. And when you're in
smallest
prison, you
detail
relate to
into a
people who
global
are
conversation,
enduring a similar
which means
crisis.
the real
So I was very
question may
encouraged
not
when
just
she
be
sent the book
what
and
actually
he read the
happened
book
inside
and
the
said,
courtroom,
I can't change
but how the
what's
story will
happened,
continue
but I'd like to
evolving
begin to
once it
use this
spreads
experience
across
as an
millions of
opportunity to help
screens
people in
around the
prison.
world.
So through Prison Professors Charitable Corporation, which does work in every BOP prison, it does work in a lot of state facilities as well, he has begun to document and say, how can I use this experience as a way to help people? And the beauty of that is you read these interviews about people in prison, even people who have been in Fort Dix. We have other people in our community at Fort Dix. And the common refrain in prison is, it's boring. The days feel like Groundhog Day. It doesn't have to be, right? It can be incredibly productive. And you can get there by learning from other people and beginning to document the journey. So that's how the relationship began. And it's really an emphasis on using the experience productively, recognizing you can't change what led to this 15-month sentence right now, but he can change how he responds. And when you do that, you bring a lot of meaning to your own prison term. The days don't feel long and boring. And you also begin to help other people. And regardless of how you feel about Sean Combs, you can't deny that he has an ability to inspire and help other people. And he's beginning to do that on the inside. And I think that's wonderful. So I'll always be grateful our friend sent him a copy of Earning Freedom, and he went through it, and he's learning from it. He's implementing the strategies we teach.
What are some of the ways that he's helping? I mean, I mentioned before that he has this specific position as a chaplain's assistant, helped with Thanksgiving meals. What else is he doing to help his inmates?
So there are some people in prison who they just continue to play the victim. It's not their fault. They've been harmed. The prosecutor's looking to advance their career. Everyone has an agenda, and it would have been a shame, I expressed to the team, if he didn't use the experience to focus on the good that he can do. So how can he be of value to people? When a prisoner is getting ready for their release from prison, do you know what it's like before you go home from prison, Jesse? Do you know the anxiety someone faces? They're scared. Yeah, they're scared. You're a convicted felon. You've been debanked. You can't get a license. You might not be able to get housing. You might be unemployable. You don't have a documented record that shows why you're a candidate for a second chance. So clearly, given his business skill set, his success, rather than lament about the unfairness and blame everybody, he said, I'm here. I'm going to use the experience productively. Well, how do you do that? You do what he began to do before he got even sentenced to prison. And I think his lawyers did a good job of expressing to the judge how he used his time in detention at MDC well by mentoring other prisoners. What would you like to do when you come home? Well, how do you develop that? How do you build that? What relationships do you need? What education do you need to develop? Is there value in documenting that journey? So when you come home, you just don't tell someone, I've earned a second chance. People are going to say, I want to see it. Help me understand it. So as I came to say, and I had confirmation of this before our team began to guide him through the nonprofit, he's helping people understand how they can use their time productively. He's using his business skill set in mind to help people use their prison term more productively. And I think that's wonderful. And it gets in the way of this message of it's boring. There's nothing you can do in prison. It's complete. Right. It's not true. It can be a really incredible productive experience if you find perspective and recognize there's value you can provide.
No, I completely understand that. Did he give you, though, any indication about how he's doing there? Is he scared? Is he miserable? I mean, you talk about doing productive.
But no matter which side someone believes, one fact is becoming impossible to ignore. The controversy is growing, and it's growing fast. With every passing hour, more commentators across video platforms are analyzing the rumors surrounding the alleged family revelations. Each new video, each new post, and each new theory adds another layer to the rapidly expanding conversation. Some claim that the reported statements reveal long-hidden tensions inside the household. Others insist the entire situation may have been misrepresented the moment it reached the internet. And right at the center of this storm remains the same question that everyone seems to be asking. What actually happened inside that courtroom? For now, the answer remains unclear. Until verified transcripts, official statements, or confirmed explanations emerge, the public is left trying to piece together fragments of information. Fragments that may or may not tell the full story. And that kind of uncertainty creates the perfect environment for speculation. Some people are convinced the rumored revelations prove the legal battle is entering a dramatic new phase, one that could shift the entire direction of the case. But others see something very different happening. They argue that the rumors themselves are becoming a distraction from the actual legal process quietly unfolding behind courtroom doors. In fact, legal experts who regularly follow high-profile cases often warn about this exact scenario. Because when a case becomes surrounded by intense media attention, the public conversation can quickly drift away from verified facts and move toward interpretations shaped more by speculation than evidence. And once that happens, separating truth from narrative becomes far more complicated.
Incarcerate Mann Act defendants who merely purchase prostitution services. During the trial, we learned through testimony what some of the male escorts or entertainers that were hired do during these freak-offs or hotel nights, and that was through the testimony of Daniel Phillips and Sheree Hayes, aka The Punisher. Diddy's defense argued this is the only case they've identified where prosecutors claim professional consenting adult males were Mann Act victims, writing, "The government now claims that the male escorts were Mr. Combs' victims, but this is apparently the only case in Mann Act history where the government has argued that consenting professional adult male escorts or entertainers who made thousands of dollars were victims. The Mann Act did not originally treat men as victims, and Congress never anticipated such an application of the statute." They argue the time he served has been punishment enough, especially serving time at MDC Brooklyn. His team argued the mogul is routinely subjected to violence, both directed at him and at others. They point one example from less than 2 weeks ago, writing, "On September 12th, for example, defense counsel was in the middle of a legal video call with Mr. Combs, which was summarily ended at 2 p.m. because of a stabbing that locked the facility down for the next several days. They write living conditions at MDC remain inhumane, lockdowns remain common, and other conditions are similarly horrible. There are 10 different examples listed of what Diddy's life truly has been like behind bars, a far cry from his life of luxury, including constant suicide watch. This means that every 10 hours, Mr. Combs must present his identification card to the guards to show that he is alive and well. Limited access to clean water. Mr. Combs often heats his water to have clean water to drink without getting sick. Sleeping in a dorm-style room within 2 feet from other inmates with the bathroom in the same room with no door. Mr. Combs has not breathed fresh air in nearly 13 months or felt sunlight on his skin. Often walking with a limp due to a painful knee injury that requires surgery that he has not received in federal custody. Lack of access to healthy or edible food, which is essential to pre-diabetics. The food that Mr. Combs has survived on includes expired processed pork, chicken, and beef, which on any given day can contain maggots. Lack of physical exercise with weights or any proper equipment. No physical therapy for his several shoulder and knee injuries. No functioning washing machines/dryers. And extreme temperatures, freezing cold or burning hot. Now, after his trial and the dozens of lawsuits he faces, his lawyers argue that his legacy has been destroyed, stating, due to adverse publicity and the allegations which the jury rejected, he faces nearly 100 lawsuits, most of which have been filed by individuals he has never met before, all of which contain made-up claims by individuals seeking to profit from Mr. Combs' downfall. Unfortunately, these lawsuits have involved his family, with his 84-year-old mother being sued in several states by individuals and his sons also being sued alongside Mr. Combs. They go on to write, as bad as life is inside of MDC, Mr. Combs has suffered countless other losses. Since his incarceration and conviction on the Mann Act, these and other collateral consequences to his life have been personally devastating. He has been separated from his family, has mounting legal bills from the indictment and defending lawsuits that were the direct result of the United States Attorney Damian Williams' prejudicial press conference announcing this case, and has lived in MDC for over a year, despite having every intention on fighting this case from day one. His defense attorneys cite other instances where his life has been systematically dismantled. For example, after Cassie's lawsuit and the lawsuits after, his companies were unable to operate as they once were, and he had to let go of over 1,000 employees. Some employees, according to the document,
When a case involves celebrities, something unusual often happens. The courtroom itself slowly becomes overshadowed by the media narrative surrounding it. Instead of focusing purely on legal arguments and evidence, the public conversation begins shifting toward personal drama, emotional storytelling, and the larger-than-life personalities involved. And when that shift happens, separating fact from interpretation becomes far more difficult. Right now, that appears to be exactly what's unfolding. The alleged family revelations have become the newest focal point in a story that was already surrounded by enormous controversy. Every new rumor adds another layer to the narrative. Every reaction video introduces another perspective, and every viral post pulls even more people into the discussion. But as the debate grows louder, something else happens at the same time. The truth becomes harder to identify. Some observers believe what the public is witnessing is simply the natural consequence of living in a hyper-connected media environment. Information now spreads instantly across the world, but verification moves much more slowly. And that imbalance allows rumors to travel across millions of screens before anyone has time to confirm whether they're accurate. For now, the story continues to dominate discussions across the internet. Millions of people are watching closely, waiting to see whether the rumors hold any truth or collapse under closer scrutiny. Because when a powerful public figure faces serious legal challenges and whispers of family secrets begin to circulate, public curiosity becomes almost impossible to contain. And once that curiosity spreads through the digital world, it transforms into something much bigger than a simple rumor. It becomes a full-scale cultural spectacle, a spectacle fueled by speculation, debate, and the endless search for answers. And until the real facts finally emerge, the conversation will only continue growing louder, with every new detail, whether confirmed or rumored, keeping the spotlight firmly fixed on this unfolding courtroom drama.